Hello and welcome to the Kayla Page Unfiltered podcast. In light of March being Endometriosis Awareness Month, I wanted to launch my brand new limited series, the Endopreneur Chronicles. In this series, I will be chatting with some powerhouse entrepreneurs, business owners, and even some medical professionals lined up that either personally have endo or specialize in the field. We will chat about journeys, businesses, and of course, some controversial conversations. This may be more than a limited series, but you didn't hear that from me. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Kayla Page podcast. Today is another episode from the Endopreneur Chronicles. I have spoken to some incredible women about their endometriosis and how it was a catalyst in their business and the creation of their business. But I realized I haven't even shared mine. If you've listened to my endo journey episode, you would be well aware of how shit my diagnosis journey was. But one thing I didn't really talk about was how that actually led to me deeping diver into my entrepreneurial journey. I really struggled with work and school since I got my first period. Feeling like I was practically bleeding out in my high school bathrooms, having to work back-to-back shifts while I honestly felt like a monster was inside of me trying to get out, like nails down a blackboard sort of vibes. And I was literally waiting for this monster to like rip open my stomach, come out and just eat me whole. I remember when I was 21, I was a few months away from my laparoscopy that I would later find out was when I actually got diagnosed with endo. I was so physically sick that even though I was only working a part-time job 2 days a week and studying at uni the other 3 days, I would call in sick with my pain multiple times per month. I ended up organising a meeting with 2 of my managers to discuss working arrangements. I did so much research, like ridiculous amount of research. I downloaded and forwarded documents from Safe Work Australia about managing endometriosis in the workplace. I came up with possible alternatives, adjustments, and even an overarching medical certificate to ensure that I could actually continue doing my job and I didn't have to keep paying for medical certificates from a pharmacist or online. Unfortunately, during this meeting, I was not met with flexibility and compromises. Instead, I was told, and I quote, "We have had employees with cancer who have had less time off than you." I could feel the anger burning through me, not just the anger of that comment, but the anger in myself for being inconsistent and being unreliable. But it wasn't me that was inconsistent or unreliable. It was my disease. Because believe me, if I had the choice, this is not how I would be spending my days. Better yet, my early 20s. It was a few weeks later that I handed in my resignation to focus on uni full-time. Over the next few months, I would be diagnosed with endo, drop out of university, become a freelance virtual assistant, start making scrunchies, and then eventually transitioning into a social media manager while I was studying my diploma of social media marketing, which then led to me launching my business at the time, OK Management. I decided that I no longer wanted to be at the mercy of an employer that could literally drop me from the company without even blinking an eye. Despite all the medical certificates for every single absence and staying in contact with my employers at all times, especially when I was off work sick. I was flaring up more than ever because I had the looming, what if I get fired, in the back of my mind, and it created instability and no security. My body was in survival mode. No wonder I was in so much pain. So I decided to do something about it. I mean, I basically came out the womb an entrepreneur, so I knew this was something that I would do at one point or another. I just didn't know when. That journey started with scrunchies. Although my parents had businesses as I was growing up, and we had, me and my brother had little like side hustles at their workplace. I remember one time we were selling like those water beads. You like put them in water. Oh my God. So good. So good. And I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity, especially so young. I think I was maybe like 12, maybe even younger. But it was a great way to earn pocket money and learn about business. And that kind of started my actual, adult entrepreneurial journey. Starting with the scrunchies, as I just started as a freelance virtual assistant for my beautician. What started as making a few scrunchies for myself because I could not find anything that held my thick as fuck hair up. I couldn't find any. They'd always break, or they were too weak, or they were just like fucking massive. I didn't need to look like I had a cupcake on the back of my head. So I decided to make my own. And it started from making them for myself into quickly turning into honestly making hundreds of scrunchies for hairdressers, my beautician to sell, friends, family. It was a very short-lived hobby that lasted about a month or two, but it made me some money. It kept me busy before I got bored anyway. It opened the door just that tiny bit to entrepreneurship and what could come with it. As I continued studying and freelancing, I ended up going back to my old job. My flare-ups were so much better. They were more manageable post-surgery. And I thought, okay, there was a lot of flexibility with what days I was actually working. It was still going to be part-time, and it wasn't a high-stress job. I honestly thought I was fixed. Okay, I've had my surgery now. I'm fixed. But when I went back to this job, the flare-ups came back and 10 times worse, like I have never had before. To the point that I was laying on the floor in the bathroom, crying, messaging my co-worker from my watch because I didn't have my phone to go into my bag and bring my medication, before slowly making my way back to the office, where I curled up in a ball under my desk in agony and was later picked up from work and taken to emergency by my mum. On my return a couple days later, I got told yet again that I was too unreliable, and if my attendance didn't pick up, I would be let go. This really solidified that my flare-ups were a result of my work environment. So I decided to launch my social media management business to start creating a life for myself, to start creating safety for myself, which in a lot of ways it did. But when you're chronically ill, it can be really fucking hard to show up consistently, especially when your disease is so inconsistent. There have been so many things that I expected and also didn't expect when I was running a business and having multiple chronic illnesses, such as how hard and how much your ego is going to take a hit when you can't show up how you want to because you're physically unable. Especially if you're a high achiever like me. Oh, I was not expecting that one. Also acknowledging that it isn't you that's inconsistent or not capable. It is your disease, your condition that is inconsistent. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It just means there needs to be a few alternatives and accommodations so you can actually show up. Also, being proactive. I didn't realize how proactive I would actually need to be. You need to be proactive in business. Like, you cannot leave everything to the last minute. And I know for me, I'm a perfectionist. And as a result of my perfectionism, I also procrastinate. And that is not a good combo, because we're going to procrastinate when we don't think things can be perfect. And if you're a perfectionist, then things are never perfect. So you keep procrastinating, because why would you want to complete something that isn't perfect? So that is really, really hard to actually break that habit and start getting on top of things. I had finally gotten ahead on my work, and I had an appointment to discuss my endo because my symptoms had gotten so much worse and things weren't adding up. And in this appointment, I got a lot of answers that at this age I was not expecting. At 24, I was not expecting the answers that I got. And I really needed to grieve that and grieve everything I had just been told, and ended up needing a few weeks off work. And it's so lucky that I actually was proactive and that I got on top of things, because if I didn't, I would have been showing up in a way that does not align with the way I actually want to show up. I needed to make sure, and it's so lucky that all my clients' content, all my clients' things were all done already. They were sorted. I didn't have to stress about them, and that made my process of going through this so much easier. And it also comes down to stress. Although my flare-ups are pretty consistent nowadays, I don't know if I'm going to get a random flare-up that will leave me pretty much disabled for a day or a week or a few weeks. Like, honestly, me, the last 3 weeks, I've been in such a fucked flare-up that I haven't had a random, mid-cycle flare-up in a very long time. Like, you don't know what is going to happen, especially when you have chronic illness. And one thing I keep telling myself, so I actually can be proactive, is I don't know if one day I am going to have a cyst, or, I have endometriosis. I don't know if something's going to happen to that, or if something's going to go wrong and I'm going to need to go in for emergency surgery. If I go in for emergency surgery and need 6 weeks off work, what is going to happen to my business? Is it still going to be going? Probably not. So I needed to be making the steps to be proactive. So that way, okay, say I go in for emergency surgery tomorrow. Okay, I've already recorded, a few weeks of podcasts. They're ready to go. I can do this. I can do that. Like, proactivity is so, so important. And I did not realize that until I started, business. Also, you need to have compassion for yourself. Like, I cannot show up as someone or like someone who is able-bodied. And I honestly felt so much resentment and frustration towards myself for not being able to show up every single day. Like all the coaches say on social media, I felt guilty for physically not being able to show up. Like, you cannot hold yourself to the exact same standards as someone that is without chronic illness. You need to be flexible and you need to give yourself compassion. You are chronically ill. Like the entrepreneurs out there that are living their best lives, doing whatever they need to do, not dealing with pain, of course they're going to, be able to do things a lot differently because they don't have, reproductive organs that are trying to kill them. Like, you need to be compassionate and you need to kind of have that perspective of, okay, I can do this. This is within my limits. This is not within my limits. Yes, someone else may be able to do that and it may be within their limits, but I can't right now. If you are someone that is struggling holding both business or work and endometriosis or chronic illness, you need to know that you're not alone. And if people don't understand what you're going through, or they make you feel bad for not showing up like someone who is healthy or able-bodied, then you need to find new people. Like, you should not be feeling bad or guilty for not being able to show up as your best self, or like other people say you should be showing up. You need to make accommodations and you need to be compassionate to yourself and your journey. You can have chronic illnesses, but there are things you need to do to help manage your conditions, to help manage how you show up on the days when you physically can't show up. On the next episode, I will be going into some ways that I manage my endometriosis, my symptoms, and how it actually helps me holding the duality of business and chronic illness. So make sure to stay tuned into next week's episode. But I just want you to know that just because people don't believe you or say that you're lazy or say that you're making excuses does not mean it doesn't exist or you're making excuses. You actually have, things that some people don't actually have. They don't understand what you're going through. They don't understand what it's like to have chronic pain. And you cannot hold the same standards as someone that is completely able-bodied and able to do all those things because they don't have, this shadow over them of chronic pain or chronic illness. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved this ep, make sure to leave a review on wherever you're listening so I can keep producing more episodes you love. If there is someone you would love to hear from within this series, please make sure to send me a DM so I can lock in even more epic conversations for you to listen to. And don't forget to come follow me on Instagram for more of my chaotic, unfiltered chats at KaylaPage_podcast. Until next time.